There's a certain kind of pain that stays quiet. You smile in front of people. You continue with work, responsibilities, daily life, but internally, part of you is still attached to someone who deeply hurt you. And no matter how many times you tell yourself to move on, your mind keeps returning to the same memories, the same questions, the same emotional weight. Why does this happen? Why you can't let go of people who hurt you is not always about weakness, love, or dependency. Sometimes it's about emotional wounds that were never fully understood. Sometimes it's about betrayal, rejection, loneliness, or the deep human desire to feel valued and emotionally safe again. Have you ever caught yourself replaying conversations long after they ended? Do you ever wonder why certain people continue affecting your peace even after they're no longer part of your life? Today, we're going to talk honestly about emotional attachment, healing, self-worth, and why letting go can feel so difficult, even when someone caused you pain. More importantly, we'll talk about how to finally begin healing with dignity, clarity, patience, and inner peace. A lot of people struggle to let go because their mind keeps searching for emotional closure. When someone hurts you, disappoints you, or leaves things unresolved, your thoughts naturally keep returning to the experience. You replay conversations, analyze memories, and imagine different outcomes, hoping clarity will finally reduce the pain. Have you ever noticed how emotional memories become louder during quiet moments or late at night? That happens because unresolved emotional pain keeps the nervous system emotionally alert. The mind keeps searching for answers, fairness, or understanding. But emotional healing rarely comes from endlessly revisiting the same wounds mentally. Sometimes closure does not arrive through another conversation or apology. Sometimes healing begins when you stop waiting for perfect explanations and accept that your peace cannot permanently depend on someone finally giving you emotional resolution or validation. Sometimes people are not emotionally attached to who someone truly was. They are attached to who they hoped that person would eventually become. That emotional attachment to potential can make letting go extremely difficult because your mind keeps remembering moments of kindness, attention, or emotional closeness while minimizing repeated emotional pain. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, maybe things could still change? That hope keeps many people emotionally stuck longer than they realize. Emotionally mature healing requires honesty with yourself. Not bitterness, not anger, just clarity. You can acknowledge meaningful memories without ignoring harmful patterns. You can care about someone while also recognizing that the connection may be damaging your emotional stability and peace. Often, the hardest part of healing is grieving the future you imagined in your mind rather than only grieving the person themselves. Emotional pain can quietly become familiar, even when it hurts you deeply. If you spend a long time feeling emotionally uncertain, anxious, or constantly seeking reassurance from someone, your nervous system may begin adapting to that emotional cycle. Have you ever noticed how peaceful situations can almost feel uncomfortable after prolonged emotional stress? Some people unknowingly associate emotional chaos with emotional connection because instability became emotionally familiar to them. That's why letting go is not only about physically moving on. It's also about teaching your mind and nervous system that calmness, respect, and consistency are safe. Real emotional healing often feels quieter than toxic emotional attachment. Less dramatic, less emotionally exhausting, but healthier. Slowly, your mind begins learning that peace does not mean emptiness and emotional stability does not mean losing connection or meaning in your life. Low self-worth often makes emotional attachment harder to release. When people secretly feel unworthy, they may tolerate emotional pain far longer than they should because part of them believes they must earn understanding, care, or emotional security through sacrifice and patience. Have you ever accepted treatment you would never want for someone you deeply care about? That usually reflects emotional exhaustion and wounded self-respect, not emotional strength. Many people fear letting go because they worry they may never feel emotionally valued again. So they continue holding on to people who repeatedly damage their peace. But emotional healing begins when you realize your worth is not defined by who stayed, who left, or who failed to treat you properly. Slowly, self-respect begins replacing emotional desperation. You stop chasing validation and start protecting your emotional peace and dignity instead. One reason people struggle to let go is because they secretly keep hoping things will eventually become different. They wait for accountability, emotional maturity, honesty, or the version of someone they once believed existed. Have you ever noticed how emotionally exhausting it feels to constantly wait for consistency from someone who repeatedly disappoints you? Hope itself is not weakness, but false hope can quietly prolong emotional suffering. Many people continue emotionally investing in patterns that repeatedly damage their peace because they fear giving up on the possibility of change. But healing often begins when you stop emotionally negotiating with reality. People reveal themselves more through repeated behavior than occasional emotional moments. Accepting that truth can feel heartbreaking at first because it forces you to release emotional expectations you carried for a long time, even when those expectations kept hurting you internally. Sometimes people are not only grieving a person, they are grieving emotional familiarity, companionship, routine, or the fear of feeling emotionally alone again. Loneliness can make emotional attachment feel stronger because the mind naturally searches for connection during painful or empty seasons of life. Have you ever noticed how memories suddenly feel heavier when you feel isolated or emotionally disconnected from others? That's because loneliness magnifies attachment. Even unhealthy emotional connection can temporarily feel safer than emptiness. But emotional healing requires learning how to reconnect with yourself again instead of depending entirely on others for emotional stability. Slowly rebuilding your routines, goals, friendships, and inner peace helps reduce emotional dependence over time. And eventually, solitude begins feeling less like abandonment and more like a necessary space where healing, emotional clarity, and self-respect can quietly return again. Many people believe forgiveness means returning, reconnecting, or pretending the emotional pain never happened. But healthy forgiveness is often much quieter than that. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it feels carrying resentment for a long time? Constant anger slowly drains emotional energy, clarity, and peace within. Forgiveness does not mean removing boundaries or allowing repeated emotional harm. It simply means refusing to let bitterness continue controlling your inner world. You can release resentment while still protecting your emotional well-being. You can wish someone healing without reopening painful emotional patterns again. Emotional maturity means understanding that protecting your peace is not cruelty. Sometimes the healthiest decision is accepting that certain people are no longer safe for your emotional stability. And real healing often begins when you stop trying to prove your worth to those who repeatedly failed to value it. Many people become frustrated with themselves because healing does not happen as quickly as they expected. They think letting go should be one clean emotional decision, but emotional attachment rarely disappears overnight. Have you ever felt emotionally strong one week, then suddenly triggered by old memories again? That does not mean you are failing. Emotional healing usually happens gradually through small emotional shifts over time. Some days feel lighter, other days feel heavy again. That process is normal when recovering from deep emotional pain or attachment. Healing is not about erasing memories completely. It is about reducing their emotional control over your peace and identity. Slowly, your mind begins building healthier emotional patterns, stronger boundaries, and greater emotional stability. Eventually, the pain that once consumed your thoughts begins losing intensity because your self-respect and inner peace finally become stronger than the attachment itself. Why you can't let go of people who hurt you is often deeper than simple attachment. It can come from loneliness, unresolved pain, wounded self-worth, emotional confusion, or the hope that things could still become different. But healing becomes possible when you stop abandoning yourself emotionally in the process of holding on to others. You deserve peace that does not constantly wound your nervous system. You deserve emotional clarity, self-respect, and relationships built on honesty, maturity, and care. And most importantly, you deserve a future that is not controlled by old emotional pain. Share your thoughts below. How are you healing today? Remember, letting go is not about becoming cold. Sometimes it is the deepest act of self-respect, emotional wisdom, and inner peace you can choose for yourself.